glorified Uber drivers for Hamas. That is how a new op ed in the Washington Times is describing the egregious failings in Gaza of the International Committee for the Red Cross. Well, Sean Durns, the article's author, is here to reveal the truth. Sean, let's get right after it. What's going on with the Red Cross in Gaza?
Yeah, so I think what we've seen here lately, Raj, is you've got these hostages that have been released after more than 400 days in captivity. They're emerging gaunt, emaciated. President Trump compared their appearance to that of Holocaust survivors. And it's the Red Cross's job to ensure that these hostages receive medical care, that they receive proper food, medications, that they're looked after, and that hasn't been the case. There's been hostages that have been tortured, sexually abused, raped, murdered in many instances, and not just Israelis, but Israeli Americans, nationals from a variety of other countries, including Canada, France, Russia, numerous more than 30 Thai nationals that have been held hostage by Hamas. And it's the Red Cross's job to ensure their safety, and they've failed.
All right, so I want to read your title exactly. So you're the senior research analyst for CAMERA, which is the Committee for Accuracy in Middle East Reporting and Analysis. So basically, your job is to get the real truth. One of the kind of the bigger headlines is people talking about the numbers that the Gaza Health Ministry gives the public. What can you tell me about the accuracy of those reports?
They're not accurate at all. I can tell you that much. Basically, the health ministry is controlled by Hamas. You've had former reporters from the area, including Luke Baker, who used to be the bureau chief there. You had the former Secretary of State, Tony Blinken, numerous other individuals who have noted that these figures are inaccurate. And indeed, Hamas has changed them, moved certain figures around. You had the Henry Jackson Society last month issue a report which delved into the figures that the health ministry was providing and found that they're just completely inaccurate. And the media knows this. Camera actually launched a campaign last year with a mobile billboard in front of the Washington Post's office in DC, basically taking the Post to task for doing what unfortunately too many other media outlets have done, which is trust Hamas, a U.S. designated terrorist group that calls for the destruction of Israel. And they're just regurgitating these casualty stats and basically serving the aims of Hamas's information war.
Well, we've talked about the Red Cross. We've talked about the Gaza Health Ministry. Let's talk about another NGO, if you will, UNRWA, the United Nations Relief and Works Agency. What has their role been in this conflict since October 7th?
Pernicious. UNRWA is part of the problem. They're not part of the solution. They have fed into the narrative that Israel is temporary, that it will cease to exist. So, for decades, UNRWA schools, which have been funded, I should add, by U.S. taxpayers, among others, have been teaching hate and indoctrinating hate and anti Semitism amongst Palestinians. So, for decades, they've been part of the propaganda war, but they've played an even worse role in recent years. In the 2014 Israel-Hamas war, it was revealed that UNRWA facilities were used by the terrorist group to store weapons. UN's own investigation concluded that. And more recently, you had multiple UNRWA employees take part in the October 7th massacre. So, just to take a step back here, this is the largest slaughter of Jewish civilians since the Holocaust. And you had a UN agency actively and aiding and abetting that slaughter. Their facilities were used. UNRWA employees, we know from the statements of hostages that have been released, that UNRWA employees helped hide hostages, and they took part in murdering and massacring Jews on October 7th. And again, this is a taxpayer funded agency that is working counter to U.S. aims and has helped murder American citizens, Israelis, and others. And it's despicable.
Well, obviously, the front page of every American website right now is talking about USAID, USAID, and the things that are being revealed about where our taxpayer money is going. Is there anything in those revelations that you think is prevalent to this discussion?
Yes. I would describe it as a blockbuster report from the Washington Free Beacon on February 10th by Adam Credo, which kind of goes over how USAID has had an anti Israel bias. It has awarded money to groups that are linked to the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, a terrorist group that also has a lot of NGO arms that serve kind of the information war against Israel. USAID unfortunately has fallen into the trap in which many of their funds have gone towards anti-Israel aims and objectives, and it's pretty thoroughly documented there by the Free Beacon. And again, this is American, taxpayer dollars at work. We're in an era where so many Americans are, struggling. There's a lot of belt tightening, and this is where our money's going towards. It's very alarming.
Well, let's go back to your op-ed, which comes out tomorrow. Why did you write it? What was the what's your goal of exposing the failings of the Red Cross?
I wrote it from a position of outrage. I grew up, I had relatives that died in the Holocaust, and I was familiar with the stories about the Red Cross collaborating, unfortunately, with the Nazi regime. Basically, the Red Cross, along with numerous media outlets like the Associated Press, in exchange for access to the Nazi regime, kept quiet about certain crimes that were occurring. This has been something that historians have talked about and documented. There was a great piece in Tablet magazine a while ago on this subject. And here we are, 8 decades after the Holocaust. And just as you have UN agencies that have actively abetted Hamas's crimes, you also have the Red Cross here. We saw these on January 25th. You had several female hostages that were released. And I watched the spectacle of their release. They're brought forward to a podium in which they're given certificates of completion for their time as hostages, given gift bags by Hamas, and then loaded into Red Cross vans. The Red Cross, it was just utterly despicable. They sat there and they basically served as Uber drivers for Hamas. These women, some of them were, tortured, subject to rape, sexual violence. Some of the reports that have emerged of hostages being hung upside down, beaten, burned. The Red Cross has done absolutely nothing for these hostages. And America covers about a quarter of the tab of the Red Cross's budget. And so what are we getting? We're getting Uber rides for Hamas. It's pretty despicable. And I think you don't need to be Israeli to watch what unfolded. These poor women being dragged on a podium after 400 plus days in captivity and being subjected to that sort of abuse by their tormentors while the Red Cross just sat there feckless.
Hmm.
It's despicable.
Well, Sean, you are a wealth of information and a wealth of clarity. We're going to obviously have to have you back on. Sean Durns, thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you very much.